To the West, he was simply known as the Magnificent, but to his own people, he was the Lawgiver. We're talking about one of the most powerful rulers of the 16th century, the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Suleiman I. So who was he? A feared conqueror, a brilliant administrator, or even a passionate poet? You know, his legacy is so complex that history can't even seem to agree on what to call him. And what's really fascinating is how these two different worlds saw him. I mean, look at this. On the left, you've got a portrait by the Italian master Titian from around 1530. It's this young, almost romanticized European take on an Eastern king. But then on the right, you have a portrait by his own court artist, Nakish Osman. Here he's older, more stately, more real. Two portraits, same man, but they tell two completely different stories. And these two perspectives are perfectly captured by his two names. In the West, he was Suleiman the Magnificent, a title that just screams grandeur, wealth, and military power. But to his Ottoman subjects, he was Kanuni Suleiman, the Lawgiver. So, which name really gets to the heart of the man? Was he the magnificent conqueror or the meticulous lawmaker? That's what we're going to dig into.
So let's start with the name Europe gave him, the Magnificent. And trust me, this wasn't just some fancy title. It was a reflection of the awe and, honestly, the fear he commanded. This whole legacy was forged in the fire of conquest and the relentless expansion of his empire.
Just look at this map. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire reached its absolute zenith. It was a colossal power, stretching all the way from the gates of Vienna over to the Persian Gulf, from deep in Africa up to the steppes of Russia. We're talking about a population of at least 25 million people. This was easily one of the largest and most powerful empires on the planet. He didn't just inherit an empire, he exploded its borders.
And he did not waste any time. He took the throne in 1520 and immediately launched this blitz of campaigns. In 1521, he captured Belgrade, the gateway to Central Europe. The very next year, he conquered the island of Rhodes. By 1526, he had absolutely crushed the Hungarian army, and by 1529, he was literally at the gates of Vienna, the heart of Habsburg power.
And that Battle of Mohaci here, well, that was a real turning point. In a single afternoon, the entire military might of the Kingdom of Hungary was just shattered. Their king Louis II was killed, and pretty much their entire nobility was wiped out. This one victory just blew the doors to Central Europe wide open for the Ottomans.
But here's the thing, Suleiman was more than just some ruthless warrior. When he found the body of the young King Louis, who was only 20 years old by the way, Suleiman reportedly said this. It's a really fascinating glimpse into the character of a man who could orchestrate a devastating victory, and then, in the next moment, mourn his defeated enemy.
And his ambitions were not just focused on Europe. Not at all. He fought 3 major wars against the rival Safavid Empire in Persia. His fleets, led by the legendary Admiral Barbarossa, basically owned the Mediterranean. He even projected Ottoman power all the way out into the Indian Ocean, challenging the Portuguese for control of critical trade routes. Suleiman was fighting on a truly global stage, and for a long time, he was winning.
So, okay, that's the magnificent conqueror. But to his own people, he was something else, something more. He was Kanuni, the lawgiver, the guy who is the architect of a golden age of law, culture, and art. The bedrock of this whole legacy was Qanun. Now think of it like this. If Sharia was the empire's constitution, Qanun was its massive legal code. It dealt with all the practical, day-to-day stuff of running a huge, multicultural empire. You know, things like taxes, crime, land ownership. Now, Suleiman didn't invent it, but what he did was collect, streamline, and codify centuries of different rules into one single comprehensive legal system, and it worked for over 300 years. This was his great internal project.
And this just perfectly illustrates the other side of him. The same sultan who was leading these massive armies into battle was also writing this really introspective poetry. He used the pen name Muhibi, which means lover. This verse, it just shows a man thinking about the real meaning of life, a world away from the battlefield.
His reign is famous as the golden age of Ottoman culture, and he was its #1 patron. What you're looking at isn't just a signature, it's a masterpiece. His tugra is this intricate calligraphic seal, weaving his name and titles into a symbol of imperial power. It's a perfect metaphor for the incredible artistic explosion that he personally championed.
He poured the empire's wealth, a lot of it from his conquests, by the way, straight into the arts. He ran these workshops with hundreds of the empire's best artisans. He drew in talent from all over the globe, creating this amazing, unique blend of Turkish, Persian, and European styles. And of course, most famously, he hired the great architect Mimar Sinan to completely transform the skyline of his capital.
And this is the result. The Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. It was commissioned by Suleiman and designed by the master architect Mimar Sinan. It's so much more than a building. It's the physical embodiment of the power, the piety, and the artistic genius of his time. For centuries, its dome just dominated the city's skyline, a lasting symbol of the reign of Suleiman the Lawgiver.
So we've seen the conqueror, and we've seen the lawgiver. But beyond all the public titles and grand monuments, there was a private life that was every bit as revolutionary as his public one. A life that was really defined by a love that just shattered centuries of tradition.
So yeah, who was the actual man behind the throne? We know about all his public deeds, but what was driving him personally? Well, the answer lies in a relationship that was just as game-changing as any of his military conquests.
For centuries, Ottoman sultans simply did not legally marry their concubines. It just wasn't done. But Suleiman, he broke with tradition. He fell deeply in love with a woman from his harem named Hürrem Sultan. You might know her as Roxolana in the West. He freed her from slavery and then made her his legal wife. This move absolutely stunned the court and turned the whole imperial household upside down.
I mean, Hürrem's rise was just unprecedented. She went from being a slave to the most powerful woman in the empire. Suleiman actually created a whole new title, Hiseki Sultan, just for her, which gave her insane status and power. And she wasn't just a wife. She was a key political advisor, writing letters to foreign kings and influencing major state decisions. Her rise kicked off what historians now call the Sultanate of Women. And here he is again, Muhibbi, the lover. He wrote this incredibly passionate poetry for Hürrem, and this verse, it just reveals a depth of emotion and a real partnership that went way beyond politics. He called her his one and only love. So, how do we pull all these different identities together? You've got the conqueror, the lawgiver, the lover. To really understand his legacy, you have to look at the sheer scale of his reign and the massive impact of his death. 46 years. I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. For nearly half a century, he was the stable center of this vast, dynamic empire. He personally led 13 major military campaigns, while at the same time overseeing a complete revolution of its legal and cultural foundations.
And he died just as he had lived on the battlefield. It was 1566, he was 71 years old, and he was on his final campaign in Hungary at the Siege of Vienna. He actually died in his tent before the final assault, but his Grand Vizier kept his death a secret for 48 days, just so the army's morale wouldn't break before they secured the victory. The Sultan's last campaign was a success even after he was gone.
His death wasn't just the end of a life, it was truly the end of an era. Historians see it as this major turning point, the moment the Ottoman Empire's golden age finally came to a close. The time of rapid, easy expansion was over, and the empire was about to enter a long period of transformation, facing all new challenges from a rising Europe. So we come all the way back to our original question, magnificent or lawgiver? The truth is, he was both, and so much more. A conqueror who pushed his empire to its greatest heights, a builder who defined its cultural peak, and a lover who shattered tradition for the woman he adored. So maybe the real question isn't which title is the right one, but how on earth one person could be all of these things at once.